Have you ever wondered how enterprises are leveraging new technologies to refine customer interactions and even enhance the precision of their digital responses? Well, today I'm going to be joined by Alberto Pan. He's the CTO at a company called Denodo, and together we're going to discuss the exciting developments at the intersection of enterprise applications and generative AI. And Denodo has integrated with Amazon Bedrock to empower businesses with large language models that not only heighten security and privacy, but also pave the way for responsible AI within corporate settings. So my guest today is going to share how their cutting-edge technology is revolutionising the way that companies can develop Gen AI applications, while also ensuring that these powerful tools are both effective and ethically aligned. But enough from me. Let's get my guest on now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. Hi, Neil. Thanks for having me. Well, my name is Alberto Pan, and I am the Chief Technical Officer of Denodo. And I've been leading our research and development organization since the company's inception. Although Denodo is now a global company with offices in 25 countries, we actually started in A Coruña, a small city in the northwest of Spain, and I am still based there along with much of our research and development team. My background is primarily in data integration and management, and actually Denodo is a data management company that enables organizations to create a unified data access layer across multiple data sources updated in real time. We often call this unified layer a semantic layer because it allows expressing the data in the language of the business, making it easily accessible and usable for business users, and much faster than with traditional data integration methods that force you to consolidate all data upfront.
Well, as you said there, I mean, Denodo, to myself, when I was researching you and the things that I've been reading online, you are known as a leader in data management, providing this unmatched performance and unified access to the broadest range of enterprise, big data, cloud and unstructured sources. But one of the things that really put you on my radar was Denodo's integration with Amazon Bedrock and how that is enhancing the capabilities of large language models too for enterprise applications. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? And ultimately, when everyone's getting excited about AI, what are the benefits that this brings to organizations that are looking to leverage Gen AI? Because there's a lot of hype around the topic, but I think learning more about what it does and the benefits that it brings, that's the magic, isn't it there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a common challenge that organizations face when building Gen AI applications is how to leverage the data stored in their internal databases, right? For instance, if you are creating a Gen AI application in a financial services company, if I am, for instance, creating a chatbot for employees, I wanted to be able of answering questions like how many loans were granted this week, or how are sales going for this new financial product that we just launched, right? But in large organizations, that information is often spread across multiple databases. Also, that information changes in real time. And this makes it impossible to train or fine-tune models with this data that is changing constantly, right? So the Denodo's integration with Amazon Bedrock solves this by enabling these corporate Gen AI applications to access and use real-time data from all their internal databases. So these applications can provide accurate and up-to-date answers to questions like the ones I just mentioned. And to achieve this, the idea is that we first use Denodo to create this unified data access layer, this semantic layer that I was just mentioning, and then using the power of Bedrock and other components of the AI ecosystem like vector databases, we are able to translate user questions into queries over this unified data access layer, and these queries will be executed by Denodo to get the data we need from the databases of the organization in real time, right? And for this, we use a particular technology pattern that is called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, that is quite popular when creating these Gen AI applications in big organizations.
And as a cautious ex-IT guy that gets nervous when people mention AI in corporate environments, I've got to ask the question, how do you ensure security, privacy, and responsible AI when integrating your platform with Amazon's Bedrock's large language models? Are there any particular safeguards or practices to manage data risks, for example?
Yes. Actually, as you say, this is one of the main concerns that organizations have today when using Gen AI, right? And there are several layers to ensuring security and privacy. First, with this RAG pattern that I mentioned that we use to integrate Denodo and Bedrock, the large language model doesn't need direct access to the organization's data, right? The large language model will only see what we call metadata, meaning data about data. So that means that Bedrock, in this case, will know details like what data views are available, what are the type of information that they provide, what is the semantics and the formats of the data columns in this unified data access layer, but not the data itself. In summary, we can say that the large language model gets access to the shape and the meaning of the data, but it doesn't see the actual data itself. So that's the first part. Second, we also ensure that users only access the data that they can see in line with the company's security and privacy policies. For instance, if someone asks the questions that I mentioned before, how many loans were granted this week, they will only receive an answer if they have the needed privileges, the needed permissions to access that type of data. And for this, Denodo supports fine-grained privacy controls and data masking rules to define exactly what data can be accessed by specific users or roles in the organization.
And on this podcast, I always try and focus on the business value and what problems we're fixing with any technology, such as AI. And in terms of delivering accurate and tailored responses to customer prompts, I'm curious, what improvements have you observed in enterprise Gen AI applications, especially using the Denodo platform with Amazon Bedrock? Anything you can share around here on the kind of things that you're seeing?
Yes. A key factor in enabling large language models like those offered in Bedrock to generate accurate queries over your internal databases is providing detailed information, what we call detailed metadata, about the meaning and format of your data. And this metadata needs to be expressed in the language and terminology of the business because, well, that is what users will use in their questions, right? Your users will not use technical language and will not know nothing about the internals of your databases. They will ask their questions in business language. Then, if you take the naive approach of only giving the large language model technical metadata, like, I don't know, table names, table schemas, the type of technical information that you have in a database, then even the best models, like those offered by Bedrock, will struggle to generate accurate queries. And Denodo helps with this by providing this semantic layer for unified data access that uses business terminology, and also Denodo enrich this with additional metadata, such as descriptions, relationships between data views, example values, column formats, and this allows the large language model to better understand your data and actually match that data with the queries or with the questions of your users. For instance, in a recent white paper that actually is available in our website, we used two standard benchmarks to measure the accuracy of this question-answer process over internal databases. And with the naive approach, we saw only 20% accuracy in the first benchmark and 50% in the second. But when using Denodo and Bedrock together in this way, accuracy increased to over 80%. So that's a very significant improvement.
And of course, one of the showstoppers of any AI journey is data, and you kind of alluded to it a little there. It's the lifeblood of any AI implementation. So how does the Denodo platform address the challenge of data quality, data accuracy, and training large language models for Gen AI applications? And what role does data virtualization play in that entire process too?
Yes, well, there are two points of view or two things I would like to mention here.
Yeah.
Right? First, when your data changes in real time, as in the examples that we have discussed so far, then you probably don't want to train or fine-tune the large language model with the data itself, because training is typically a batch process that is better suited for more static data. For dynamic data, this is where the Denodo and data virtualization come in, providing a real-time solution without the need for constant retraining. But second, yeah, for the static data, where you do want to use training, organizations often face the challenge of pulling this data from multiple sources with very different levels of quality, different levels of structure, different levels of consistency. And the semantic layer provided by Denodo helps with this by presenting data in a consistent way. Also, in these semantic layers, you can apply data quality policies to validate the data. And you can also ensure uniform semantics. So this helps guaranteeing that the data that you use for training is complete and is reliable.
And just to bring to life what we're talking about here, are there any real-world examples or indeed use cases where companies are seeing real tangible benefits from integrating Denodo with Amazon Bedrock and creating enterprise Gen AI solutions? Anything you can share around that?
Yes, actually there are many examples of joint customers of Amazon and Denodo benefiting from this integration. For instance, some examples that come to mind, a multinational IT company is using this approach for self-service information across various operations such as sales, project tracking, and also the health of their data center services. So, for instance, employees can ask questions like, what service availability issues have we had in the last 2 weeks, or things like that, right? For instance, another example is a law firm that is using this solution to answer real-time questions about customer metrics and customer engagement. So, for instance, if they are meeting with a customer today, then they can ask questions such as, what is the satisfaction level of the client I am meeting? Or how has their engagement with our services evolved over time, right? That's another good one. And maybe one of my favorites, because it's already in a very advanced stage and very heavily used inside the organization, is a global healthcare company that has implemented this approach to create what they call a clinical data fabric that allows users to access data about patients, about healthcare practitioners, and also about clinical studies in real time. As you can imagine, privacy and security played a very important role in preparing this particular use case, and I think the results have been very successful so far.
And with the growing emphasis on responsible AI, it's a topic I hear at every tech conference I go to around the world. With that in mind, how are you helping organizations navigate some of those ethical considerations when deploying large language models in business environments? Because I suspect this is a question you get asked a lot too, right?
Yes. Well, I think one key point when navigating these ethical considerations is data governance, having a solid data governance foundation. Because when we have data, as it often happens in big organizations, distributed across many data sources in multiple formats and with different semantics and different levels of data quality, it can be very difficult to ensure that you are not introducing inaccuracies and bias, right? We think that Denodo can help with this because the unified data access layer that Denodo creates across all the internal databases and data systems of the organization provides a single entry point to define and also to enforce these security, privacy, and governance rules across all the data sources in the organization and also across all the data consumers. And this is really one of the required previous steps to ensure an ethical use of the data. So let me also be clear, Denodo will not entirely solve the problem of addressing ethical considerations by itself. You will need to have a solid practice on top of it. But we think it can provide a solid data foundation that you can rely upon as one of the building blocks for this strategy.
And I suspect there'll be many business leaders listening wanting to go all in with Gen AI applications without any understanding of the development process and the work that the developers will need to do. So on behalf of every developer listening, how does the integration of Denodo with Amazon Bedrock, how does that streamline the development process for those new Gen AI applications? And are there any specific features or capabilities that might make it easier for enterprises to get started?
Just to streamline the process, to try to make this as easy as possible, we are releasing what we call the Denodo AI SDK. This is a software development kit that developers in organizations can use to quickly create these Gen AI applications. This SDK provides APIs and utilities for quickly integrating Denodo and Bedrock, and also for making it easy to start building these Gen AI applications integrated with their particular ecosystem and leveraging real-time data from all their internal databases and data systems. This SDK is open source and can be used not only with the commercial versions of Denodo, but also with Denodo Express, our free community edition that can be downloaded for free from our website. So even if you are not a Denodo customer, even if you are not using Denodo currently, you can still get the benefits that we have been mentioning. And I encourage listeners who are interested in creating this type of Gen AI applications to try out themselves to see the benefits in their particular scenarios.
And looking ahead into the future, I mean, we're now weeks rather than months away from life in 2025. So I've got to ask, are there any trends that you anticipate in the evolution of large language models and Gen AI within enterprise applications next year and beyond? And how are you maybe positioning yourself to try and stay ahead in this space too?
Well, obviously, first of all, the Gen AI landscape is obviously changing very fast.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make predictions, but inside the data realm, I would mention a couple of things that I see happening in the next couple of years. Well, first, starting on the present, I think today most organizations are focused on building a solid data foundation for Gen AI. And for instance, I was reading this morning a Deloitte report on the state of Gen AI in the enterprise. And in that report, 55% of organizations identify data-related issues as the biggest barrier to adoption. So I think in 2024 and 2025, we will see a lot of effort in this area, and we believe Denodo can play a significant role in addressing these challenges. Beyond that, once we have that foundation, I think the next big step for Gen AI in large enterprises, at least from the data perspective, will be using it to finally make information self-service a reality across the entire organization. Because if you think about it, and despite significant investments in the last years or even decades, I would say that self-service data access and data democratization is still relatively uncommon in big organizations, and it's often limited to power users with some type of technical knowledge, right? And Gen AI has the potential to change this. It can be the force that finally makes data democratization and data self-service are reality in big organizations. We are already starting to see examples of this, but I think we are still in the initial stages. So in the next 2 years, we will see, I think, how information self-service spreads in a big way across all big organizations in the world. And once again, we think that Denodo can contribute to this by providing this Gen AI-enabled semantic layer for unified data access. And another impact of Gen AI in the data world that we have not mentioned so far is, I think, that the distinction between structured data, like the data that you have in databases or that you access through APIs, and unstructured data, meaning the data that you have in documents or in media, images or videos and so on, this distinction will start to slowly fade away, because now these two types of data are dealt with two totally different technology stacks that are almost completely independent, because previously there were not good ways to link the semantics of both worlds. But now with large language models, we are starting to see methods with very reasonable accuracy to bridge this gap. And I think this will also have a very strong impact in the data world that we are only starting to see. And of course, outside of the pure data realm, outside of the data domain, there are many other application areas for Gen AI in the enterprise, such as task automation and optimization. Also, outside of the technical areas, we will see in the next few years companies investing in adapting to the emerging regulations around AI. And again, we think that a solid data foundation will be crucial for this.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me, share your insights with everyone listening today. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you to leave one final gift for our global audience. And that is, can you leave us with a book that has inspired you or means something to you, or that you would just recommend that everyone listening can check out? And I'll add it to our Amazon wish list so people can check out all the books that guests have recommended. But what book would you like to leave and why?
Well, one of my all-time favorite books is Fictions by the Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges. It's a collection of 17 short stories that are incredibly inventive. They are filled with philosophical and mathematical concepts that remain inspiring and thought-provoking even today, more than 80 years after it was written. For instance, there is one story in the book called Funes de Memorios that tells the story of a man with perfect memory recall, right? But paradoxically, this perfect recall also limits his ability to think in abstract terms. For instance, when you read it now, it's hard not to find parallels with large language models, right? That are also great at recalling information that they have seen in their training models, but sometimes may have limitations to use that in a more abstract way. So there are very, very surprising and strong connections between these stories that were written more than 80 years ago and many topics in technology today. And other stories, for instance, like the Library of Babel and the Lottery in Babylon are also very evocative, I think, for data and technology professionals. Even today, so I think it would be a great addition to the library of the podcast.
Wow, you are a class act, my friend. I will proudly add that to our Amazon wish list. And kudos to you for not adding a self-help or business book. There are so many of those out there. It's great to hear something with a touch of class. So I'll be getting that added straight to the wish list. And for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more about Denodo and everything that we discussed today, anywhere you'd like to point everyone listening, you want to maybe ask a few questions or find more information?
Yes, there are a lot of interesting resources related to this in our website. We have a specific section about that in our a specific section about generative AI in our website with a lot of interesting resources, including the ones that I mentioned here. And of course, I will be more than happy to answer any other questions or to discuss these topics with anyone interested through my LinkedIn account. You can simply search for Alberto Pan Denodo, and I will be happy to discuss.
Well, I'll add all the details there, along with a link to your LinkedIn profile, so people can connect with you nice and easily. And I think when talking about things like integration with Amazon Bedrock, large language models, it can be quite daunting and complex, but you've put it in language that everyone can understand here. And I'm confident that both techies and business leaders will have some powerful takeaways of how this integration with Amazon Bedrock is enabling enterprise Gen AI applications to deliver more accurate, more tailored responses to customer prompts, not to mention streamlining the development of powerful new Gen AI enterprise applications with security, privacy, and responsible AI in mind. Just a few takeaways for myself, but thank you for shining a light on this today. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Neil, for having me.
Big thank you to Alberto there for sharing his insights about how Denodo's integration with Amazon Bedrock and its impact on Gen AI applications right across the enterprise sphere there. And it's clear that the path towards a more responsive, tailored and ethically conscious AI-driven applications is being shaped by these advanced technologies. And listeners, what are your thoughts on the future of Gen AI in businesses? Have you already encountered any applications that have helped transform your experience, or are you still in the very early stages? Because I seem to get a lot of varying opinions on this, and I'd love for you to join the conversation. And you can do that by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, X, Instagram, just @NeilC.Hughes. Love to hear from you. But I'm afraid we're out of time for today. I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest, but thank you for listening as always, and hopefully I will get to speak with you all again bright and early tomorrow. Bye for now.